Hello and welcome back to the brand new Ultimate Beginner's Guide to Cities Skylines 2. In the previous videos, we built the town from the ground up, and now we're on the precipice of something big, but only if we plan appropriately. And that's because we're at a point where a city can start to have growing pains. And if we're not careful, or we forget to add city services, we can stifle our city's growth, or worse. So in this episode, we'll focus on meeting all of our city's needs to absolutely prime the pump for future development. That means adding all missing city services and ensuring that they are right-sized for this community. We'll also solve our unemployment issues by ensuring that we're building the right kinds of jobs for our citizens based on their education level. And if you're excited to expand some city services, hit the like button. And if you're looking forward to the next video where I show you how to logically expand, hit the like button for that too, and let me know what you're thinking down in the comments. Or leave an emoji representing what you're thinking for the sake of engagement. But before we jump in, this video has been sponsored by me, or more specifically, my merch store, which has just been updated with all new designs, like this beautiful Magnolia County mug, and these absolutely massive and absolutely super cool Let's Take a Mulligan and The Struggle is Rail mugs. And we've still got old favorites like this Verde Beach Metro map and the Respect the Topography sweatshirt. So if you want to check it out, just head to cityplannerplays.com. And with that out of the way, let's get back to the video. The first thing I want to examine today is education, and that's because we've been basically ignoring it up until now. We've actually only built one educational facility, the small elementary school, and it's at capacity. We've got 388 out of 400 students here, and we're not going to reach the full 400 because our efficiency is only 90% due to sick employees and poor mail handling, two more services that are failing in this city. The reason why education is so important is education will correspond to the types of jobs that your citizens can get, and if they're at the lower end of the education spectrum, they won't be able to earn as much, which means that they might have trouble paying their rent. So to examine our education pipeline, we'll click on Info Views and then go into Education. And the first thing you'll see is that there are 4 different types of educational facilities that we can build: elementary schools, high schools, colleges, and universities. Now, everyone will attend an elementary school if they're available. And if they attend an elementary school, they will go from uneducated to poorly educated. And if they attend a high school and complete that, they will go from poorly educated to educated. If they go to college, they'll become well educated. And if they go to university, they will become highly educated. Now, this is important again because of those job levels. And this is easy to see by actually taking a look at a business and seeing what their employment needs are. So right here, we've got a commercial building, and if we hover over employees, we can see that their primary need is going to be poorly educated and educated employees, with some well-educated employees and just 3 uneducated employees. So having as many uneducated employees as we have is not going to help us. And if we're building lots of offices, that issue becomes even more pronounced because offices need educated, well-educated, and highly educated employees, and they skew to the well-educated and the highly educated positions. Now, you might have noticed that we've got educated, well-educated, and highly educated employment opportunities full, and those can be filled by folks who are moving into our region that have these different education levels, or by people who are commuting in. And if they're commuting in, that means that our lack of education might mean that we are generating traffic. But we could be getting hit on another end as well. If we take a look at some of these areas of high rent, in some cases, what we'll see is that we've got students living here, people who are commuting outside of our region for college, who may end up leaving our region altogether once they get educated. So this is a problem that cuts in many different ways. And the way that we need to resolve it is to make sure that we've got enough educational facilities built. So the first thing I want to do is take a look at our elementary schools, and you can see that there are almost 2,000 citizens that are eligible. Again, everyone will go to elementary school if they're given the opportunity. So we currently have a capacity of 400. So if we want to meet the need, we need to build at least 1,500 in total capacity. So there are a couple of different ways that we can reach this. So the first way, and probably the easiest way, would be just to add on to this elementary school. And we'll do a little bit of that. Let's add on some extensions. So I'm going to make some space. And then if we click on this building, we have a couple of upgrades available to us. This extension wing. And I'll add 2 of those. And what these have done for us is added $1,000 per month in building upkeep. They've also added employees and 100 student capacity. So now the total capacity of this elementary school is 600. And we could keep adding these. There's this radius that we could add these within. And I bet you, if we were really diligent, we could add enough to completely fulfill our education needs. That said, I don't know that it's the best choice, not only because it would look pretty ugly, but also because if you take a look at some of the homes around here, you're gonna see that this home is really happy. This is our overall city happiness, and this person's happier. And part of that is they are within walking distance to elementary school. So they're getting 6 additional happiness for that. So it would stand the reason that we may want to have more smaller elementary schools sprinkled throughout the region because we're a lower density area if we want that bonus. Because I imagine if we look at this one, they're not getting that bonus for being walking distance to an elementary school. So this is a real thing that you might want to think about. So rather than attempting to build this up, let's build another elementary school somewhere else. And we've got a couple of different options available to us. Obviously, we could add another small elementary school. We could also add an elementary school. This is the basic elementary school that came with Cities Skylines. The capacity of this one is 2.5 times higher. And then we also have an urban elementary school, which has a capacity of 1,500. So we're looking at 1,100 students more than the small elementary school. Now, for both of these, you're able to add extensions. The elementary school extension will add on another 500 capacity. Same thing for the urban elementary school. So I want to add a elementary school because with the extension, this should totally meet our need and exceed it. What I'm thinking is we've got this little spot right here that maybe we could place this. And the nice thing about that is I talked about the happiness boost. At least this is a dense area. So we are going to provide that walking bonus to this very dense area. So I'm going to flatten a pad for this. So we're going to take a couple of liberties here. In reality, I think the way that you'd handle this, rather than flattening this entire area, would be building the school into the terrain. But we can't do that in the game. So we'll take a couple of liberties and I'll place that right here. Then we'll smooth it out, nothing to see here. And then I'm going to add the extension onto this right away. So there are a couple of different things that we could add. We've obviously got the children's clinic. The children's clinic would improve the health of children in this area. We also have the extension wing. This is 500 students, $5,000 per month in building upkeep. But remember, we're going to add a ton of employees for this. We'll actually add another 50% on. And then there is a playground here. We don't have this because we haven't unlocked the large parks, kind of like we done at the sports parks, which is why we couldn't add the gymnasium onto the small elementary school. So I am going to add this extension on here, and just know that if we let this run for a couple of minutes, we're going to see this thing almost completely fill up. So I'm going to do that right now. Now, I'm guessing that this thing is pretty close to max capacity at this point. And the thing I wanted to point out here is that we're seeing the number of employees kind of shoot through the roof. So just know that that initial number that you see is not where you're going to land. This corresponds to the number of students that you have here. They'll hire more employees based on that number. So the total wage amount will increase. And popping back into our education info views, we can see that we are basically at an equilibrium with elementary schools. Our capacity is 2,100, our eligible is about 1,900. So we are in a good spot with elementary schools for now. So let's switch gears to high schools. We currently have about 1,000 citizens that are eligible to attend high school. But before we build enough high school capacity to accommodate all of them, I want you to consider one thing. We've had an elementary school for a while, and it's been churning out high school ready students. However, without the high school, their education journey just stops right there. So now there are an exceptional number of students that are ready for high school, and after we build it, it appears that we need 1,000 capacity. But after they make their way through high school, that overall enrollment number should likely decline. And not exactly sure where it will decline to, but it could be 500, 600, 700. It likely won't be 1,000. So as a result, I'm not going to meet that entire capacity. I'm going to get somewhere close to it, and then we'll recalibrate near the end of the episode. And I think for now, I want to target about 800 for capacity for our high school. And we'll see where things shake out. So let's build the perfect high school for this city. And we've got 3 options available to us. We've got our small high school, which has half of the cost, upkeep, and capacity of the other 2 options, and allows you to have extension wings and sports parks. So it's very similar to the small elementary school. And then we also have the high school and the urban high school. And they have the exact same cost, upkeep, and student capacity, even with their upgrades. The big difference is the size of the buildings and the fact that the high school has a sports field, which can be added on. It's basically a large park, and a library, which actually improves graduation rates. All that said, if you want to place an elementary school in an urban area that's already been developed, the urban high school is likely the best choice for you. And because that's what we're trying to do in this community, because we want it to be centrally located and located off a transit line, I think that's what we're going to build here. So I'm going to take out a few single family homes and place it right here off Primrose Street. This provides excellent walking distance to our tram line right here. And we currently have 20 students who are attending this, and that number is going to slowly rise. And while we wait for it to improve, I want to build the next piece of our education pipeline, which is a college. Now for this, we will have to unlock colleges in our progression menu. So we'll pop in here and we'll unlock colleges for one development point. Now, before you place a college, you need to make sure you've got a lot of money in the bank and you're making a lot per hour. And that's because the college is very expensive. This thing costs $750,000 and it's going to cost $75,000 per month in upkeep. It has a capacity of 1,000, which is more than enough for us considering we currently have 840 who are eligible. But interestingly, because none of those folks were actually educated in our city, we have no idea what our capacity needs are for college at this time. We're going to have to wait and simulate for a while to find out. Now, I've been reserving a place for the college right here at the bottom of the hill. And what I'm thinking is we'll do a bit of grading and make this fit right about here. Now, for our grading, what I want to do is find a height in between the top height that we're going to carve into and the bottom height right here. And I'm thinking that right about here is going to be a good fit for us. And I want to make sure that we've got enough space to place our college library, the only add-on that will occur outside of the building's footprint. And we've got plenty of space. Now, I'm not going to place this because this is another $250,000 and will increase our monthly upkeep, which we absolutely should not be doing right now because we're going to be adding a whole bunch of services in just a moment. Now, I am setting this a little bit back so that we can switch back up to this. So let's do that right now as well. And I was very patient and deliberate with this so that it looks exactly the way that I want to, with the contour line spread out pretty far. And that's so that this is not a very steep road. Now, I'm going to grade the rest of the site as well. Now, our college, just like our high school, is going to need some time to enroll students. So I'm going to let this simulate for just a couple of minutes and see how our capacity is looking. And after letting this run for a while, we're starting to see that our high school and college enrollment is improving. However, we're still nowhere near our capacity, so we'll just need to keep an eye on this over time. Now, there's only one more school that we would need to build to complete our education pipeline, the university. However, it's way too early in our city's life to even consider this. It's incredibly expensive and has a very large capacity, far more than we would ever need in a community of this size. So we're going to sit tight. And because we have our free bus route to the outside world, I think we are completely fine where we're at with our education system. And with our education pipeline improved, let's move on to expanding existing city services. There are really two buckets of city services that we need to improve right now. First is our city safety services, and second is our utilities. And the reason why I know it's a problem is, number one, looking at our info views. If you look at power, for instance, we're right on the precipice of having our consumption line up with our production. And for our safety services, I'm starting to see little icons popping up throughout the map where we are not responding to things like this right here that just popped up. We have a crime that's been committed here, and those only pop up when you're not patrolling appropriately or when criminals are being released back onto the streets to commit more crimes. Look at another one popped up as well. Now, if we look at our police station, we can see that we are completely maxed out right here. We've got 10 criminals arrested and we have a jail capacity of 10. So it's time to improve this. If we look at our healthcare, it's the same situation. We actually have almost 3 times as many patients as we actually have capacity. So in this instance, I think that we need to eliminate both of these facilities and add new ones. So I will eliminate both of these and we'll add in a police station. And the reason why I want to add a police station is this has a jail capacity of 25, and that is 2.5 times more than the small police station that we had, and the same number of patrol cars, and we can expand that to 12 if we'd like to. So I'll place that right here, and then for our healthcare, we're going to place a medical clinic rather than a small medical clinic. This has 4 times the patient capacity and the same number of ambulances, though we can double the number of ambulances and add to patient capacity in the future if we'd like. So we'll place that right here. And this won't resolve things immediately. We have a bit of a backlog, so it's going to take a little bit of time for things to shake out, just like our educational buildings. So let's switch gears to our utilities. And really, we've got a couple of options here. We've been using these wind turbines, and they are great. They don't have any employees. You don't really need to do much in terms of maintenance. All you got to do is set it and forget it. And we could continue to build these if we'd like to. And I think for the time being, we are going to. And the main reason for that is we do not have an outside connection right now. So if we build a larger power plant, we're going to be in a situation where we can't export our excess power. And that's going to leave us in a position where we are just spending a lot on a power plant without being able to sell off that excess. So let's add 1 or 2 more of these wind turbines. And after getting those connected, we have quite a bit of overhead. I'm going to hold off on adding the upgrades, but I think that we'll likely be adding those in short order. Next, I want to start to clean up the water a little bit. So we're going to take our sewage outlet and add our upgrade that allows for chemical purification. This is not going to completely purify it, but it will purify it by 25%, and that will help us clear up our water. So we're starting to think ahead for the long term. And then finally, our most expensive and arguably our most important upgrade, our landfill. And the reason why I want to do this is we are currently starting to store a whole bunch of garbage. And we're doing that because we can't process it as quickly as we're taking it in. So there are ways to improve the processing capacity here. We could add a hazardous waste collection plant, which would add 20 tons of capacity for our processing per month. That's a good short-term fix, but I want to pursue a long-term solution. And for that, we've got to either unlock our incineration plant or our recycling center. Now, both of these are very expensive, but they process a ton of garbage. The recycling plant, for instance, processes 1,500 tons per month. That is a ton more than we are currently doing. We are currently processing 100 tons per month. It also has 15 garbage trucks, but costs $80,000 per month in building upkeep alone. And that is not including the garbage trucks at all. Our incineration plant, on the other hand, processes twice as much per month and can store twice as much and has 50 garbage trucks. So this thing is a great long-term solution. It also generates up to 40 megawatts of power, which is way more than we need right now, but this thing is very expensive and it also produces a fair amount of air pollution. Now, for a community of our size, I think that the recycling center probably makes a little bit more sense. It produces less air pollution, it's a little bit cheaper, has fewer garbage trucks, and it is expandable just like the other 2 options. So let's go ahead and unlock this. So under garbage management, we'll spend 2 development points on the recycling center. And reasonably, after we add this recycling center, we won't really need this landfill anymore, but I don't think it's bad to have a backup just in case we accidentally produce more garbage than we can process. Do know that this is going to be expensive though. And here we go. We've added a recycling center to our waste management campus, and we can see that we are now losing money. So we could attempt to resolve this by increasing taxes, which I'm going to do for the time being, though I'm not super excited about it. The other thing that we could do would be to just decommission this. That's not very realistic, but the game will definitely allow you to do it if that's something you want to pursue. And I think I have an easy way to solve our budget crisis, and that is to solve our unemployment crisis. Reasonably, when I start to see lots of these high rent indicators, it makes my spidey senses tingle a little bit, and I start to think that maybe we have an unemployment issue. So to check that out, go under your info views and go down to population, and what we can see right here is that our unemployment is currently at 28.4%. So that is outrageous. So before we just start building lots of employment uses, which include offices, commercial, and industrial, we should see what we actually need in our community based on our education levels. And we can see right here that we've got a whole bunch of people who are either poorly educated or educated. And for them, we're probably going to want to build industrial or commercial type uses because more of them are employed in those types of jobs. If we were to build a bunch of offices, we don't really have enough highly educated or well-educated people to fill up those jobs. And we wouldn't really be doing much for the poorly educated and educated population that we have. So with that in mind, let's build a whole bunch of industrial. And I think for that, we'll expand our existing industrial park and then maybe build along our highway on either side of it. And if we have to, we'll build right here as well. Now I want to continue to be organized with this, so we will build in a very deliberate and controlled way. So I'm going to use paths to control the direction of my zoning. And I've added a bit of parking and some paths here just so that it's a little bit easier to get around and to try to get some of those vehicles off the road. And in fact, because I don't want cars parking on the street, I will remove street parking right here. Now, one thing that I think is kind of fun to do is to click into your info views and look at your population as you're zoning so you can start to see your unemployment fall in real time. So for that, we'll click on industrial, then we'll click on population, and then I will begin zoning. And as we were waiting for our factories to fill in, we reached milestone 8, big town, and we got some much needed money, some development points, and even some expansion permits. Let's look at our progression panel and see what else we get. High density buildings for the very first time, and the ability to take out an even larger loan, which we will not do. And adding these buildings got our unemployment down to 19.2%, but we have to do even better. And the funny thing is, you saw it pop up right there. That's because people are being drawn to our community because we have new jobs. So what I want to do now is build out along the highway, and we are going to add some alleyways so that we can have zoning up and down here. But I want to be cognizant of our terrain, so we don't want to build in an area like this, for instance, that is starting to elevate. I will build small roads like this, and I'm trying to maintain enough space in between the highway and the buildings for this to seem rational. And generally, in the real world, the Department of Transportation would require a setback in between these buildings and the highway, just in case the highway needed to be expanded. So that is why I don't want to pull these buildings right up to the highway. Now, I'm going to turn this bridge right here into a highway. That does two things for me. First of all, it will ensure that we don't have zoning along the bridge, which will clean things up for us. And secondly, I think it's a more logical transition. It'll help people get through here quickly. And I think it makes this area over here a bit more developable. So now let's bring utilities to these new roads before we zone in. And because this highway has lights, we don't need to bring electricity here. So let's just add in zoning. And interestingly, while these were filling in, we started to make money again. And it's not a lot, but we are at least basically breaking even. Now, one thing I should have pointed out is that I already knew the wind direction when I placed these buildings here. But if we take a look, by looking at our air pollution, we can see that all of the wind is going this way towards our existing industrial and our other polluting uses. So this is basically the perfect spot for more industrial. And as I look this way, we can start to see that the power has been disconnected from this area. And I'm fairly certain that's because we had a local road right here before, and now we have a highway. So let's get that upgraded. And that should have cleared things up for us over here. Yep, they're all happy once again. Let's double check our unemployment one more time. And now we're down to 9.1%. So our big need now, though, is offices. So let's go ahead and add a few of those. And we've had this area right here that I've been reserving for a future use without really knowing what that use was. And I think I know what it is now. We have to have some offices. So I'm going to face the offices towards Coleridge Street. So we kind of build a little bit of an office corridor right here. And there we go. Now, I did do one thing a little bit tricky, and that was right here on Spruce Street. When I was upgrading this, I wanted to make sure all of the offices were facing Coleridge. So I upgraded this little segment of road to be a highway just while these buildings were filling in. And as they started to get built, I replaced this with a normal road, and I was able to keep zoning on the correct street. So a little bit of a hacky way to do that, but if you're in a pinch, it's a way that you can make it happen. Now, one more unemployment check And we can see that we're down to 8.9. So we didn't really put much of a dent in it with these offices. So what that means to me is it's time for a bit more industrial. Even though the demand's not quite there yet, I think it's what we actually need. So we are going to add more industrial on this side of the highway. And there we go. All of those have built out. And look at that. We've crossed 10,000 in population. Now, I want to take a look at our unemployment, and less than 1%. Now, the reason why that happened is, again, someone with a high education level can work in a job that requires a lower education level, but the inverse is not true, which is why I thought it was important that we build a whole bunch of these factories rather than a bunch of offices. Now, in the future, that might change, and we might have more educated people living in our city, but for now, this is the perfect mix. But perhaps most importantly, we're starting to make a ton of money again, and we could cut taxes if we want, or we could do what we're about to do, which is add missing city services. There are 2 city services that we still haven't added to our city: mail coverage and the internet. And the result of that is that our citizens are less happy, which means that their well-being will be impacted and they're more likely to become criminals. Our businesses aren't operating as efficiently, which means that their profits are reduced, and our overall tax collections from them are lessened. And the efficiency of some of our city services is being impacted, which means that we ultimately will end up building more of them. So it's important that we resolve this by adding these city services as quickly as we can. In addition, I want to take a look at parks coverage because that can have an impact on leisure and well-being, which can again cause citizens to become criminals. But first things first, let's add a post office. And for that, we've got 2 options: our small post office and our post office. The main difference here is the overall cost of the facility and the amount of mail that it can handle. For our small post office, it can handle about 1/4 of the mail that the post office can handle. In addition, it's only got 1/5 the number of post vans, so the coverage is going to be quite a bit slower. That said, because it only has 4 post vans as opposed to 20, it means that it's also going to have much lower wages. So if money is a concern, this might be the right facility for you. In addition, the small post office is not very expandable. You can increase the storage capacity by 10,000, whereas on the post office, you can add extra garages and storage extensions and really make this thing perfect for a large city. All that said, we don't have a large city, so we're going to add a small post office. And I'm going to add that right by the rest of our city services, right about here. And because it's inexpensive, I'm going to add the mail storage extension right away. Now, this extension occurs within the footprint of the building, so that makes this building very, very small. It can fit basically anywhere. It's very versatile. And because it only has 4 vehicles that serve it, you can place it on basically any road in your community. Now, we've only done half of the job with mail coverage. We also have to add mailboxes. These are places where mail can be dropped off and picked up, and if we don't add these, our service won't be nearly as effective. And you can see that all the roads in red don't have post-service coverage, and the way that we get that is by adding these mailboxes. And there we go. Now, when I'm placing these, I like to think about what's actually happening here, and what you're doing is placing a stop, basically, where a post van will go and pick up mail. So that means that they will stop at this location and potentially back up traffic. So try to keep these off arterials and collectors if you can. And if you want this to feel really realistic, place it on public property. I didn't do that, but you can tell that I didn't place any of these on arterials or collectors. Next, let's get some internet coverage. That's once again underneath communications in our second tab. Now, by default, only the radio mast is available to us, and if we want to unlock either the server farm or the telecom tower, we'll have to use some development points. Now, we are probably going to do that because the radio mast has a limited range and limited network capacity. Both of those are expandable, but it's not going to be enough to serve this entire city. So I'm worried that if I place the radio mast, I'm going to have to place multiple of them, and you can see that the coverage is not very good. I'd have to place this basically in the center of the city, and even with that, we're not going to cover the whole thing. So we have a server farm, and this is a building that is relatively large, and in a large city is honestly very attractive. It has a 2-kilometer range, so twice that of our radio mast, and 30,000 gigabit network capacity, which is about 10 times that of the radio mast. Moving over to our telecom tower, This has a range of 5 kilometers and a network capacity of 20 gigabits, so it's 10,000 less than that of the server farm, but it's still quite large. Now, in general, I would say that the radio mast is great for small towns of limited area and limited density. The server farm is great for a very dense community, and the telecom tower is great for a more spread out but still fairly dense community. So I'm going to unlock that, and we're going to place that here. So for that, we'll go underneath progression, and then underneath communications, we can see that our telecom tower is right here for 4 development points. And indeed, the telecom tower has excellent range. We can basically place this anywhere within our community and cover the whole thing. Now, if we were min-maxing, we would try to place this perfectly out here to try to reach our entire community and give ourselves availability out here as well. I want this to feel fairly realistic though, so I'm probably going to place this right about here and then switch back a road up to it. I think that this is going to be an excellent location. But before I place this thing, I'm going to run a road up to this location, and I'm going to use an alleyway. So I'm going to turn off all my snap twos with the exception of snap to existing geometry and 90-degree angles. And we'll call that good enough. We've really snaked our way all the way around this. So I am going to flatten out a pad right here. This will help us fix this road that got all lumpy and bumpy. And now we also have a pad to place our telecom tower. And now I'm not going to feel too badly about improving this around here. I had to do quite a bit to make this fit, but one thing I want you to keep in mind is that in reality, buildings usually conform to the environment around them, and we don't really have that luxury in the game. So while I think that you should respect the topography, don't be afraid to modify it a bit to make a building work. It's what we have to do in this game. And ultimately, the beauty of city builders is having the ability to make the city that you want to build. So feel free to take some liberties from time to time. And honestly, I think that that looks pretty great. I like the location and I like the switchback road up to it. And if we look at our citizens' happiness, they appear to be happy about the internet as well. Mail coverage is still an issue, but that's one of those things that should shake itself out over time as all that backed up mail makes its way through the system. And then finally, I want to take a look at our parks coverage because I do think it's having an impact on our citizens' well-being. So for that, we'll take a look at leisure. And you can see that indeed we've got areas where we have great leisure availability and other areas where there's basically none. So let's add some parks to areas that have poor coverage. And unfortunately, up until now, we've only had our basic parks unlocked. So I think that we should spend a few more development points. And underneath Parks and Recreation, we should unlock Parks Maintenance, and then both our large parks and our sports parks. This will provide us with these 2 additional tabs, which give us a lot of different options for our parks. And it allows us to fit them in a variety of locations. The first park I want to place is the multi-purpose park. And I think that we can make this fit really nicely behind our elementary school here. And by adding that park right there, we've improved our leisure availability in this entire area. And the nice thing about this park is that we can attach paths directly to it, which gives us a dual purpose. And there we go. It feels like it's part of a larger campus now, which I really like. But we aren't done yet. I want to add some of our new sports parks. And in this corner right down here, I think that an outdoor gym could fit really nicely. So we're going to add that in this little corner that we have right here on Poplar Street. And you can see that that improves the well-being in that entire area. I'd like to add 2 more facilities, 1 more over here. And this time I'll add a small playground. These can fit basically anywhere, so I should be able to sneak that right about here. And adding that little park right here provides excellent coverage to basically this entire area. However, we still need something a little bit more over here, so I think we might add 1 more. And that ensures that we have excellent parks coverage in this entire area. And then finally, we've got this area over here near our industrial park. And I think it's really important that we have good coverage because there are negative externalities in this area, such as air pollution and ground pollution. So we'll at least make this area a little bit more palatable by adding a basketball court. And I decided to add 2 to make it feel more like a complex. And with those extra new parks that we've added through here, we have excellent parks coverage basically everywhere. But I think the most important thing that we've just done is we've caused our budget to recover. We're making a ton of money. And because of that, I want to attempt to tackle all of our high rent complaints by lowering taxes. So we'll go underneath taxation, and I'm going to dramatically drop down our residential taxes. And by lowering it down to 5%, we're still making money, which should improve our citizens' well-being. It should also improve their ability to make their rent payments, and hopefully over time, we'll start to see some of these complaints go away. But that will take some time, so why don't we do a little bit of landscaping and detailing? For our landscaping and detailing today, I'm going to go fairly minimal, and I'm also going to crank the game simulation speed so that some of the issues that just need time to work themselves out will work themselves out. And there we go. I think that things are looking pretty good around here. I want to point out one thing that I had to do while I was detailing though, and that is I had to apply the upgrades to the wind turbines that we placed because we started to run out of power. As the buildings were leveling up and upgrading, they were consuming more electricity, and as a result, needed those upgrades. Now, the most important thing about the detailing was not making the city look better, but rather allowing the city to normalize a little bit. And I feel like we're starting to reach a bit of an equilibrium. So the last thing I want to do today is do a little bit of recalibration. We have modified a ton of our city services, and as I mentioned throughout the episode, a number of them would need to normalize over a period of time before we could see what kind of capacity we actually need. And now that we've let things run for a while, I want to go back and check our work. Think of this as kind of running a spell check when you finish an essay. That's what we're doing right now. And I'll tell you, I can see that 2 of them right now are absolutely not working appropriately. We've got our police coverage, which is having some problems. We see a bunch of crime scenes, and I've also seen some issues with our clinic. I'm seeing lots of ambulances pop up, which means that we're likely at capacity with our ambulances. So let's start there, and we'll take a look at our clinic. And indeed, all of our vehicles are in use. So we're likely going to want to add the ambulance depot, which is $3,500 a month in building upkeep, plus 8 new employees. So this is actually quite expensive. Thankfully, we're generating a ton of money per hour, so we don't have to worry about this too much. So we'll add this on, and that'll give us 10 vehicles. Now, we're also seeing that our patient capacity is starting to run out. And now that we have more ambulances, it'll likely run out quicker. So I think that we should probably also add our extension wing, which is going to add another 8 employees. So even though the wing is relatively inexpensive to place, you got to think about the employees up front because it's going to cost you. Now, unlike our ambulance depot, this upgrade occurs outside of the footprint of the building, so we have to place it somewhere within this radius. And I think that we're going to place it right across the street where this office building is, and I'm going to spin this towards Main Street. Now, I've placed this here for a couple of reasons. First and foremost, it allows us to maintain our setback with this office building, which I really appreciate. Secondly, this building doesn't load any vehicles, so it's completely fine to place right on Main Street because we're not going to have ambulances dumping right onto Main Street. And with those 2 upgrades in place, I think that we have a bit more runway with our clinic and we're okay to move on from here. Next, let's take a look at our police station. And I'm going to be upfront with you, I think that we're going to have to do a little bit more to make this work appropriately. First and foremost, we can see that our jail is almost full, and there is no upgrade to increase the capacity of the jail. So if we want to increase jail capacity, we're going to have to add another police station. So that makes me reluctant to add police vehicles because we're going to have a new police station that's going to have additional vehicles. So let's look at placing one. And I don't think that our small police station is going to cut it. It only has 10 jail capacity and 6 patrol cars. Our small police station only has 25 jail capacity and 6 police cars, so I think we're going to jump right to our urban police station, which has 40 jail capacity and 16 patrol cars. This should give us a little bit more headroom, which I'm really looking for in the build right now. As an added bonus, this building is really small. It's about half the size of the police station, and I think I know just where to place it. We've been increasing the density here near the college, and I think that trend will continue into the future. So I'm going to place this right over here, and we'll take out this building that's complaining about high rent. We'll consider this a redevelopment opportunity. And now that we have our urban police station, our jail capacity issue should be resolved at least in the near term. However, we've got one more issue as it relates to policing. If we pop into our police info views, we can see that there are currently 30 prisoners sentenced to prison, but we have no prison availability, and that's because we haven't built a prison. Now, prior to the Economy 2.0 patch, all of your prisoners will get sent to the outside world if you don't have a prison. However, the only way to do that now is to have the Import City Services policy enabled, and this will import all city services, so it's incredibly expensive. So because we cannot enable this, I think that we have to build a prison right now. And the reason that we have to do that is because these prisoners will be released to the public immediately and will go about committing crimes. And they will reduce the well-being of the other citizens in our community, and some of them will become criminals. And it becomes a bit of a vicious cycle, so it's not what we want to happen. The only problem is that the prison is quite expensive. It's $650,000 and $100,000 per month in building upkeep. That's to say nothing of the employees. But alas, we have to have it. So we're going to have to take out a loan, something I've really tried not to do, to build this building. So to take a loan, we'll click on our money. And once we have our economy tab up, we'll go to loans. And I'm going to take a loan out for the entire cost of the building, $650,000. And now we have to unlock the prison. So we'll go into our progression menu. And underneath police and administration, we'll have to unlock the police headquarters first, and then the prison. That's 6 development points in total. Now, before we place this thing, I just want to draw your attention to how large this thing is. It is significantly larger than the recycling center that we placed earlier. So you're going to have a relatively large flat pad if you want to build this thing. Now, I think there's one really appropriate place for this right here, relatively close to the freeway, and hopefully we can tuck it behind some trees so we don't have to look at a prison every time we come into town. And there we go. Now, one interesting thing that I've done here, I've obviously tried to plant a lot of trees to try to hide this thing from the highway. And, it's kind of worked, kind of not. At least the building's not super unattractive. But one of the things I tried to do here was remove trees, because I've been told in the comments in the past that around prisons, they generally want to be able to see if someone escapes. So that's why we cleared the forest around it. Now, unfortunately, adding the prison has really sapped all of our money. So what we're gonna have to do in the short term is boost up our taxes. So our residential taxes are right now 5%. Let's crank those up to 10 or 11%. And that will get us back in the green, which is what we need if we want to be able to pay back this loan. Another thing that might help us pay back our loan is increasing our density just a little bit. And I think that increasing our density might also help us get rid of some of these high rent indicators. So what I'm thinking is that over here near our new police station, we've got a few areas that have single family homes. And I want to replace those with row homes and at least one low rent housing building. And as I was placing all those European row homes, we unlocked a new signature building, the Vertigo Square, and we are obviously going to place this right away. And that's because this building is free and will increase well-being within 750 meters. I thought it might be kind of fun to see what this building looked like next to the row homes, and it looks absolutely terrible. So what I think we're going to do is relocate this thing and place it right there next to our low rent building, which I think looks a ton better. And I probably spent more time on this than I needed to, but I just like to make sure that the area feels complete. Next, let's take a look at our school capacity. And what we can see is that we have plenty of overhead for colleges, we're doing fine for high schools, and for our elementary schools, we're actually a bit short. In fact, we could add one full small elementary school and it would be filled immediately. So I think we're going to add one plus a couple of extension wings. And I think we'll add that right about here. And there we go. I think that looks pretty good. And if we take a look at our capacity, we now have a bit of overhead, which is exactly what we wanted. And now with all of our new services in check, there's only one more thing left to do. That's take inventory of what we've done with a brief city tour. While we didn't grow the city much today, what we did accomplish was incredibly important and really primes the city for rapid development in the near future, which I think we'll take on in the next one. And before we head out today, I wanted to leave you with this overview of what we've built, just in case you're building along with me. Or if you'd prefer, I'll leave a link to the save in the pinned comment below so you can dive into the build yourself. But for now, I think we're gonna leave it here. And I really hope that you've enjoyed this one. If you did, please hit the like button. If you're not subscribed to the channel, please consider doing so. And I really want to thank you for your time today. There's a million things that you could have been doing. You decided to hang out with me and play some Cities Skylines too. And I really appreciate that. It really means a lot to me. Thank you so much for joining me, and I can't wait to see you in the next one. Thank you so much. Take care. Bye-bye.